to Food for Thought. For all of those people that haven't seen it before, I started this show to give people food for thought through empowering and enlightening conversations about transformation and the more specific details about positive transformation. Each guest is an inspiration to me, and I hope they inspire you too. Also, I'd like to mention that each of you is an inspiration to me, because over the last 4 or 5 months that I've been doing this show, people have been really supportive. I love the fact that you all show up. Thank you for all the direct messages and things talking about the show. And even when you can't make it, you're so kind to send me messages and say, sorry, I can't make it this week. But if you can't make any of the shows, don't worry, because they're always on my profile and they're also on YouTube. So thank you all, and thank you to all the guests so far. This week, I will be talking with Anastasia Attiki. Have I got that right? Yay! Yeah. Right. Anastasia, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us where you're from, what you do, and what got you into what you do.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me on the show, Matt. And I have been one of the ones watching every week, and it's been really, really fascinating listening to people and what they have to say on very similar subjects, but completely different to what I do. I'm a transformation coach. I work with people to first find out what beliefs they have that stand in the way in what they want to get in their business and in their life. And the beliefs I particularly like working on are the beliefs people have about themselves, about who they are, what they can and can't do, and what they deserve, and that kind of thing, which I think is really fascinating. The things we pick up from childhood that are simply not true. But nevertheless, we do pick them up, and maybe later in the show I will explain how that works and why we do that. And that makes it easier to then get rid of them. We don't need them.
Absolutely. So we don't need them, or we don't need the ones that don't help us.
We don't need the ones, well, we don't need the ones that don't help us, but really, there's very few beliefs that we actually need. We don't, there's so many beliefs, why have all these beliefs? It's like, I believe this and this, so what? If they're not causing a problem, it's a so what situation. So what, I believe in fairies. I don't, but if I did, well, not in the sense that Disney presents it anyway, maybe other kind in different realms, but anyway, not in the Disney sense. I don't believe in that kind of sense of fairies. Okay, so what? It helps no one. It doesn't matter if I do it, I don't. The only time we actually notice them is when they cause a problem.
So here's a question for you. Why do we form beliefs?
We form the ones that I'm talking, the ones I usually work with people to discover and to change, either change or get rid of, hopefully, are the ones that we they come after a conclusion we form in childhood in order to protect us, in order to cope. So a lot of them are a coping mechanism. We come to conclusions, and therefore they form our beliefs. And a belief is a conclusion or a thought we have over and over and over again, and then it's stuck in as a belief. But it doesn't mean it's true.
Right. Okay.
And it means that we can change it at any time. I can start believing something that really serves me and I really want to, or decide that I don't want to have any belief and I'm just going to have a virtue, something that I need. I need a certain virtue in order to complete a task or reach a goal. Therefore, I'm just going to be more of that. And I'm going to suspend beliefs about what is and isn't possible. I'm going to observe. So one of the first things I do with people I work with, and it's a very useful exercise, is we start observing what is it actually that we do. What do we do according to certain beliefs that we have? And if we drop that belief, what will we do instead? So observe a bit like a scientist. What is it I do, and why do I do that? If you start observing ourselves, it's amazing what we find out.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said earlier we don't need beliefs, and I think that's quite an interesting concept, because I think many of us, even in the self-development world now, we're taught to exchange beliefs. So you said about virtues, really, so ultimately, if the less beliefs we have, the easier it is for us? Or...
Well, yeah, because a belief that you might exchange a belief and say, all right, I want one where I'm really positive and I'm really, but then, or I can do anything I want, or I can be brilliant at something, and you can change to that belief. But then if I'm in a situation where the brilliance is just not coming, I've changed the belief, I am brilliant, therefore I'll go about my way. And if I'm on the way of being brilliant, but haven't quite got there yet, because it takes, certain steps to go to the bit where you say, okay, nothing's impossible, I can do everything, it can backfire. And we can feel, oh, I'm putting that belief, I now believe it, why isn't it happening? So there is a time where, oh, I believe this happens, and then it doesn't. Whilst if you're just observing reality and nature and what is happening, then I think it's much more, okay, I'm observing this is happening. Well, I don't like this happening, so I'd like something else to happen. So I'm going to believe that the something else is possible.
So ultimately, yeah, I really understand. So like having an excessively positive belief can lead you to feel disappointed when you don't live up to that belief, basically. Yeah. As well, in the same way that having an unhelpful belief will stop you moving towards something. So really interesting. And so you talked about virtues. So how virtues are something more something better to have than beliefs? Or
I believe it's kind of a looser expectation. You don't have as much expectation when you say, okay, I have this belief that I'm not good enough. So I'm going to work on realizing, why it's there. And therefore, once you realize why it's there, it's easier to shed it. It's easier to let go, because it was there to protect us in the first place. And then we can just let it go. And then what I want more of, in order to be able to, I want more abundance, I want more love, I want, this is what I want more of. I don't really need much of a belief, apart from the belief that that is possible. So there are some beliefs, that is possible for me. And with a lot of people I work with, I find that when you try to change the belief to, I'm going to have loving experiences now, or I'm going to have lots of abundance, lots of money, lots of blah, 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 and you're replacing a belief, it doesn't quite work, or it doesn't quite work as fast, because there is the ego, and there's the part of us that is going, yeah, right, okay, okay, I'm on board with getting rid of the things that doesn't serve you, but with the other one, I'm not quite there yet. So when you say, well, I welcome more abundance, I welcome more, or I accept that can come to me, rather than I now believe that is my my right, and that is it, it's not believable. Let's put it this way, people struggle with that, and I'm not, it'd be great if we could all believe everything was possible, but that's not what people are. And I'm a realist. I like to look at, I don't mess with reality. I don't mess with what I'm observing is happening. And of course, I do know that your reality depends on what you believe. But if the belief is too far high to reach, then the whole exercise goes to pot. And people give up. And they go, it doesn't work. It works for some people. When they say, because I use some hypnosis in my coaching work. So we'll say, some people this works, and some people it doesn't. They can't work out why. My observation has been with people that this is too far reaching, this is too big to take in as the new belief, it doesn't work. You need steps to get there. And
oh yeah,
there is like shed that expectation that I now have this belief, because I go around having, you know, this affirmation, this new belief going in, you know, in hypnosis, and it just doesn't happen. Or it happens so slowly that they've given up in the process. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. I was thinking, like, when we swapping beliefs or changing beliefs and trying to look at more positive beliefs, there's a logical progression. It's a bit like anything we do in our lives. You've got to look for the next step. If you go from, you know, I'm not worth anything to I'm worth like $1 billion every day, it's just your whole body is going to go, hold on, how, where, why? And show
me the evidence.
Show me the evidence. Whereas, like you say, if you say I were willing to accept abundance to any level, financial abundance to any level, then your psyche, you're more likely to agree with that and be more virtuous about it. So why do you think so many people have unhelpful beliefs these days? But I would say it's often, I would say more than helpful beliefs in a lot of respects, from my experience.
Yes, the way I understand it is that when we come into this world, obviously we come, you know, knowing that, knowing but kind of forgotten that everything, we're entitled to everything. We can have whatever we want, we can do whatever we like. And then we go through childhood and the upbringing. And it's not just the parents, it is the parents, everybody around us, our culture, our education system, because I work with some people, especially neurodivergent people. That's people who have certain things, for example, ADHD and autism and dyslexia, that their family might be supportive, not always, but their family might be supportive, but the education system just completely fails them. So what happens is they come into the world all wonderful. And to explain it with neurodivergent people, it's actually easier because they are truly wonderful. All connections, they're firing on all cylinders. They're brilliant minds. And then they are trying to be put into a mold that doesn't quite work for a neurodivergent brain. So what happens is that we look at the world, we are made to believe that we're not good enough as we are, because we don't fit into whatever mold they're trying to fit us. So this is the education system, but the same could happen in someone's family, and it doesn't have to be in a big way. They don't have to be criticized consistently. I mean, if they're criticized consistently, this definitely happens, but it could be little things. It could be, I remember working with a client whose mum, you know, we went to kind of their past regression, and the mum just was busy, was reading the paper, didn't always have the time to give the attention that this person needed. And therefore, their understanding as a child, we don't think, oh, mum's busy, she's got other things to do, she'll be with me in a minute. They think, well, I'm not good enough. Because we're always looking for security. We're always looking for safety and security. And with that comes connection. So the connection to the parent, to the teacher, to the people around us will ensure our safety and security. Because if we're rejected, then that's quite bad for survival, especially when you're a child, because when you're a child, you can't really survive on your own. So we will side with whatever we perceive the other people, the adults, are thinking of us. So, and we will reject ourselves, because that is controllable. If you think there's something wrong with me, that is not fitting into what they want me to do, be, act, behave, then I can control that. I can change that. I can mask that, hide it, right? If it's something wrong with them, then Lord help me, because if the people taking care of me, there's something wrong with them and they're not really doing their job properly, I have no chance. So that is too much for the human to think about. So by putting themselves down and in a way siding with the people that are there looking upon them and going, you know, you shouldn't be doing that, you know, that's not quite right, or what we perceive as, oh, they haven't got time for me because I'm not worthy. It's nothing wrong with them. There's something wrong with me. Then we protect ourselves at that age.
Mm-hmm.
And then we carry on with that because we haven't really upgraded that program. And we're going thinking, depending now on experiences and on the personality we have coming in, people will vary, even if they're in the same family.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I actually, have you read the book, I'm Okay, You're Okay?
I haven't read the book, but I'm very well aware what book you're talking about.
Right,
Yes.
yeah. Well,
Yes.
I've got the book here and I read it,
Yeah.
and it's a really interesting book, actually.
Yeah.
It's one of these other books that my mum, if you're watching, Mum, hi, because I know you seemed interested in the show, she gave me. And it's got some really interesting stuff, which is specifically what you're talking about. So in the book, they talk about 4 types of people. The main one we all want to be is, I'm okay, you're okay. Meaning we accept ourselves and we accept other people.
Healthy balance, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's the other 4 derivatives. I'm okay, you're not okay. I'm not okay, you're okay. I'm not okay, you're not okay.
Yeah.
And it's, I think it's interesting how few people realize how much that part of childhood up until 6-7 years old affects us when we're adults. I think this isn't what's known, is like you say, it's just a lot of the people who I've interviewed have come across similar stories where they dug into a belief and found out it was from childhood. Yeah. Like you say, and it can be completely unintentional from my experience.
Oh, it's totally unintentional.
Yeah. As parents, because one, this education isn't common, it's not normal. Most people start seeking it when they get into their 30s or 40s or that part of their life, and then somebody comes along and goes, oh, this is how you're wired, by the way. And you're like, I wish I'd known this 20 years ago. You know.
It is actually quite nice to see young people, my daughter is 16, and people of that age becoming aware of these things much younger than, I mean, I was in my 40s. That was like, a decade, no, actually late 30s, early 40s, that I became aware of all this and started introducing hypnosis to coaching. And in fact, when I started working with hypnosis, I thought maybe some people will have, as you said, will have been affected, in childhood. Several years down the line, I realized that everybody, all the problems we have, everyone, I mean, I went in just curious, thinking, oh yeah, maybe some people it will have been affected. They will have been, this will also have started in childhood. They all have. And in fact, when I get them to go back to where they started it, I get them to the subconscious mind to go back and show us when it started. It's usually when they're toddlers. It's very, 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 very young. At the time when we actually previously thought, oh no, they don't really know much. They don't know what's going on. They're not, they're in their own world. No, everyone's very aware. I mean, the earliest I've had a client go back is in the womb,
right,
when they were aware of something. So
yeah. Well, I think what I think a lot of us are not aware of, and again, this is in that book, is that we do start recording from 9 months in the womb. And so if we are exposed, that's the word I'm looking for, exposed to loud noises, violence, discomfort, and things like that, then often we're going to think or believe that that's what life is about, or what we're about to be born into. Before we're even there. So we may be born into this world as a nervous child, and then be a more challenging child because we're already nervous. And I think, like, language has a lot to do with it, the language we choose. Is that right? I mean, I think I was lucky enough to have a child therapist as a website client, and one of the things I learned really interesting is that to point out to the child it's their behavior and it's not them. If they're playing up, you're being angry or you're acting angry, but not you're angry. not you're an angry person, because then
Yes.
you're forming these beliefs
Yes.
with your child.
Yes, and I I didn't start out, but I spent nearly 2 decades in working in education. I was first a teacher and then a coach in education. So I saw a lot of things that I realized were, you know, starting out. And my students weren't as young as, well, we're talking about the age before 8. My students were 16 to 19. But I saw a lot of the things, regardless of how old someone is, where they come from and where they come from the family. And one of the most disheartening things that I found working in education is wanting to help a student, and they're still in the family that is causing the problem. And some of them were real problems. And I don't mean, you know, as I said, it could be simple things, but no, some of them were things that weren't that simple. And they're still in it. And one of the things that we had in the in my work in education that we used to say to each other is, it's like 1 step forward, 2 steps back when they're still in the family, but not if it's something that is extreme and it's abuse or neglect. Then safeguarding steps in the UK, and we can do something about with the law. But if it doesn't quite hit that mark, it's very, very difficult to work with someone, because I remember, I mean, it was a very sad thing when you'd get a student and they recognized there was something that they were picking up from the family and their behavior from the family, and being told things from their family about themselves. And that's why I, you know, very much like working with people about the beliefs they have about themselves. And they would go back to the house, they would go back to the family. At the end of the day, they would be with you, and then at the end of the day, they'd go back to the family that created that. So after about a year or 2 of working as a coach in education, I would work with students who were sabotaging, who were self-sabotaging. They would, you know, not attend, or they would do things that didn't quite fit with their abilities, their capabilities. And what I found after about a year, I wouldn't even go into what they've done. I would go, okay, tell me some words about yourself, describe yourself to me, because how they thought about themselves would mean everything about I could predict what they were going to do, depending on how they would describe themselves. And I'm not a child psychologist, I was a coach. I wasn't a therapist or a child psychologist. I was just a coach. But that was something that I found experientially. Just after a while, there was a direct link that I could see between young people and the opinion they had about themselves, what they'd been told. Because at that age, you could still ask them, so who told you that? They'd say, oh, I'm useless. Who told you that? Well, my dad tells me every day. They still remembered where they got that information from. Whilst with adults that are, you know, say in their 30s or 40s, they're kind of forgotten and taking it in as their own. Whilst at that age, it's my parents that tell me this. And sometimes, I hate to say, it was the teachers who reinforced that idea. And then you know what they were going to do, because they would act on that. So it's very, very, what you said, that point is so important, that you separate the behavior from the person, because then you could get change. Because if you're doing that, but I'm a good person that is somehow doing something that's not to my in my best interest at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think, you know, it's very difficult when anyone is in an environment where they're constantly having the beliefs they're trying to change reinforced. Yeah, I mean, I find that really interesting. I think sometimes, like Anna's actually commented something here, which is this. Is it that one? No, it's this one. Right. I'm finding that a lot of people are not aware that the problems they're dealing with as adults stem from experiences and traumas from their childhood. And I think a lot of people are not aware of how easy it is to form a belief. How really, from my experience, you need to check all your beliefs, because you need to make sure you've made an actual conscious thought out decision about what you believe. Because I'll give you an example. Like, even in your community, you live in a town or a city and everyone says, oh, people around here only get these jobs. Yeah. You know, that can form a belief within you, you know. Sorry for the terrible accent. I'm not going to claim where it was from. I'm really bad at accent. But yeah, these form beliefs, you know, unhelpful beliefs, and they are generally formed in childhood. Another thing I want to share with you, I'm sure, and I've got some really good questions for you. Another thing I find really interesting from that book, I'm Okay, You're Okay, is that the parent is not just the parent. It's any information that you were fed as a child that you accepted as true.
Yeah.
And so one of the things it points out is that leaving children in front of the television as children can actually form really unhelpful beliefs, because they can't depict reality. As they say, the subconscious can't either. So you leave them in front of war, or worse, soaps. Sorry, I have to say that, but in my opinion, soaps are terrible. You know, and again, these things also, they can help us form beliefs as well. Television, soaps.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things.
Sometimes it can be our savior, because TV, when in my childhood, for me, I used to watch soaps and I used to watch family. I was really interested in family dynamics. And because there was a lot of dysfunction in my family dynamics, because I grew up thinking, how did I know there was something wrong with my family dynamics? Usually you don't know. You think that's normal. But somehow I knew. And trying to think back, I think it was TV to show me that, you know what's going on, there's something wrong here, because this isn't what people do on telly. There's something. And then I started to investigate it, you know, and observe other people's homes and what they did in their house and how they interacted with one another. And because from a very young age, I knew there was something wrong. And I thought, how did I know? Because usually people grow up thinking it's normal. And I deal with a lot of people, you know, clients who would say, you know, will come in and say, oh, but I had a wonderful childhood. I had a really nice, so it's definitely not that, right? And that's very rarely true. It's just that they think that's normal, understandably. And I knew there was something wrong in mine. I mean, I knew there was parts of it that were good, and they were, but somehow I knew there was something wrong. I didn't want to voice it, but I knew, and I was wondering, how did I know? How? And I think it was TV. I was fascinated by families on TV. And so in that case, it helped me, although, you know, people in films and dramas and soaps on TV, they're not, you know, that's not real life. That's not normal either. But it kind of gave me another way families communicated that didn't scream at each other. It was different, an alternative. And I thought, really, these people exist, or is it just on TV? And then I you know, I kind of investigated and thought and did find out that there are families who don't actually always scream at each other. But I didn't know if it hadn't been for the soaps. So, but when I said earlier, it's not just your parents, it's everybody around you, the adults around you, TV, school, everything. It's everyone, your environment. It's not just your parents, and it could be relatives in a lot of cases. A lot of people we've got close-knit families, they've got lots of relatives, so it could be somebody in your family, or everybody will have affected your beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because one of the things is that we don't know as adults, or it's hard to see until we've had children of our own, is how hard it is for a child to make a decision, you know, they don't have the experience, they don't have the ability, and so the brain isn't formed. So there's a couple of comments here. So Amanda's put, I'm not sure that it is possible to carry memories from the womb. Our brain is not fully developed when we are born. If it were, the actual trauma of the act of birth itself would be very traumatic. Childhood trauma is different though. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I've
Well,
heard
my
it
experience,
is. Yeah.
when I experienced the client, I wouldn't call them memories, but the client went back in regression, went back to what she perceived to be the womb. And I mean, it was very difficult because it's very difficult for me to tell that it was the womb, because it was, you know, you're in a dark place. They don't call it the womb because obviously they go back, they don't know it's the womb. The information we got wasn't memories, it was feelings, emotions. It was how the person was feeling at that time and how they were perceiving the mother's emotions. So it wasn't a memory like this happened and this happened. It was, I feel this, and it was feelings that were coming from the mother. That's how this particular client was perceiving the experience. It was different to any other regression I've done. It was definitely more abstract, and the information we got was a feeling that was there. So he must have he had, but we couldn't ask the mother because the mother had died, the client's mother. So it was difficult to get that information, you know, in pregnancy, did you feel like this? But we were picking up the emotions. So that's been the experience.
Yeah, from my understanding as well, that we start to form emotional memories and things from the womb as well, and so it's in the transactional analysis book as well. I think, like you say, it's more to do with the connection with our mothers. They do say like about not distressing pregnant women and you know, all these things. So sure there's something there. And Cher's mentioned social media has become apparent to many children today.
Yeah,
I think
they're getting ideas.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree, Cher. I would say, yeah, it's something that's really challenging as a parent these days, if I'm honest, especially when they're younger and they're already getting into TikTok. And I got to admit, like, even the parents get the kids into TikTok at like 6 years old, and all the mums are doing TikTok dances and go, look, do it with me. And then like by the time they're 9, they're already telling you you're wrong because they've learned stuff. And you have to watch this. This is this is something I'm really watching myself, is like, the last thing you want is a teenager who respects TikTok more than you.
Yeah. And, my angle on this, and that this is how I've brought up my daughter. I think she's 16 now, 16 and a half. And from a very young age, I knew technology was here to stay. I could not fight it. I could not. I felt not very wise, and I did see other mothers doing, you know, fighting, saying, "Oh, put this blocks," but I thought, especially if you get a rebellious child, the more blocks you're going to put, the more they're going to, you know, the more dangerous stuff they're going to get into more danger finding out. So my angle on this is to actually go with it, but in a educate your children. So ask them what they're looking at. Don't overreact, because then they're just going to hide it. And you know, this is working for thousands of teenagers as well. They're just going to hide it if you react badly, and not tell you what they're finding out. And it's receive all the information and then guide them if there's something that, you know, that they could be in danger. So I educated my daughter about pedophiles on the internet from a very young age. I mean, she didn't quite understand what the term was, but I wanted for her to understand that somebody that she's chatting to online could not be, you know, a lovely girl of her age who's pretending to be a lovely girl of her age. It could be a 43-year-old man who has not got her best interests at heart. And so I didn't go into detail because she was quite young at the time, but I explained to her that is a possibility and not to give out any information. And what I found, to me, that worked really well, because she would come back and say, oh, I'm talking to such and such person, can I give this bit of information? And I would discuss it with her, which meant that she didn't actually put herself in any danger at any point, because she would talk to me because she felt, all right, she's on my side. She wants me to look, you know, to go on the internet. She just doesn't want me to do anything that, you know, she wants me to become aware of where it could go wrong. So she appreciates that to this day and tells me stuff I try not to be overreactive.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing. And I mean, try not to get too off topic here, because I've got some questions about that. We'll get back on beliefs in a minute. But yeah, I also find that but it's kind of to do with forming beliefs, because one of the things is that I've noticed with my daughter is I've had to teach her how to fact check, because she starts to go, oh, this, and I'm like, look, like, okay, this is daddy watching the video, okay? How come they've got a camera in 3 positions to make this live video? Yeah. And, you know, do you think there's any chance they're using a script? What about if we check the facts on Google? So I teach her to fact check her stuff.
That's the kind of thing. You're not stopping her. You're just saying, you know, think about it, which I think is brilliant, because, you know, social media is here to stay. We just need to educate our children to take it with a pinch of salt.
Exactly. I think it's going to create a better future, because they won't allow misinformation when they grow up. Whereas we've been inundated with it and still are a little bit. And so I see that. So there's a couple of comments. I'm just going to catch up with them. So Anna said our bodies register our experiences, and even though our conscious minds can't remember what happened in the womb and early infancy, our bodies have the memory and react to stimuli that triggers that memory. We have patterns of self-protection that we are not aware of until we connect with the body's memory. Absolutely, Anna. And I'm just going to say it one last time. Everybody watching, read the book, I'm Okay, You're Okay. Because it explains all of this stuff. And so one of the things is that you can literally put an electrode in somebody's brain and stimulate all of the memory of smell, feeling, touch, sight, and all those things. So yes, and then
another good book about what Anna's just said is The Body Keeps the Score, and that's if you've been through trauma and your body keeps you know, keeps the memory of that. So that's actually quite a good book. Yeah.
So traumatic experiences obviously form beliefs as well.
That's not, well, no, they do, but I mean, I'm not a trauma specialist. That's a whole other bag. But doing the work I do, and any coach or sort of doing any work, they're going to come across trauma. So we are, I mean, I'm, you know, aware of it, but I certainly don't specialize in it. I think it's quite a big subject, but I think it is important that we're all aware of it, because it's the cause behind so many things, unexplained things people do, that you think, well, why, you know, whenever you can't work, well, to me, whenever somebody does something that just doesn't make sense, it's either they're wired differently or trauma, or both. And sometimes when you're wired differently, as in neurodivergence, a lot of trauma comes with that, because of your experiences as a neurodivergent person living in a neurotypical world, and there is some trauma there. But yeah, you know, there's always an explanation, and trauma holds the key in so many, you know, I don't specialize in trauma again, I say, but it holds the key to so many behaviors people exhibit. And the way we feel about things, it always goes back to, you know, we're affecting childhood, and trauma will take us to certain beliefs. You form certain beliefs, especially about the self.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were talking earlier, and I think this is a thing about trauma and childhood and all these things, is that, you know, when we're a child, even our parents will struggle to know how we deal with something traumatic, because we won't know how we're dealing with it. And you know, and even with the most amount of support, you know, and when everything seems all right, it is still unclear. Like there's been proof that traumatic events during childhood actually change the way that the brain grows, and and so, you know, and thus leading us to unhelpful beliefs and everything. So let's talk about some of your beliefs. Now, you had a really cool list of beliefs that I've been through here as well. So now most of the beliefs you've worked for were to receive abundance in your life, right?
Yeah. Okay. One of the biggest one, and I hate to add that I was forced to change that belief, as in I was physically, well, I wasn't forced as in I wasn't in hospital or anything, but I was physically just burnt out. And for a while, and I had a time in my life that I was dealing with too much, and I just wasn't able to go on working. for a while. And I'm a single parent, so it wasn't like that, another income was there. I would have liked to have changed that belief before I got to that point. That's what I'm saying. But I'm, so I don't judge. There's no judgment here for anyone who has changed because they had to, that their body and life has forced them, because I definitely learned a few things the hard way. So I changed the belief that you have to work to earn. I had to change that in order, because I was in that state, in that burnt out state. I thought, I need income for a year. I need to not drop my income and just receive. And that's what I need. That's what I needed. And I realized, I sort of, went back to what is it? What belief do I have that stands in the way of that? And it was that, like a lot of people, that's quite a common belief, that we need to work to earn money. And I remember chatting to my dad, who also had that belief, and he's retired, and he retired years ago. He's in his late 80s, and he always had a more abundance when he was working. And I said, Dad, do you think that you have less abundance now? Because I said, do you believe that you have to earn a living, that you deserve more money when you're working? He said, yeah. So I realized where I got that belief from. I mean, it wasn't just my dad, it was everybody around, but it was very strong, having it with my dad, because I'd noticed whenever I would sort of receive without earning, without working in the past, it wouldn't last long. It would just be sabotaged. So I sort of thought, oh no, I've got to work. So here comes, a time when I was able to do that. So I started doing my exercise. I started doing, the stuff I do, that I do with other people. I think, well, I need to change that. I need to rewire my mind to get rid of that belief, that and just welcome abundance. I didn't think, oh, I'm going to replace with a belief. I'm just going to welcome. I'm just going to let it come in. And really what I needed was for my money to carry on. So long story short, I had a windfall. I had other ways that the money came, different ways, but they did not drop. In fact, I actually in that year earned more. And then I thought, oh, this is nice, but I can, after about 6 months, I got bored of, I thought I want to do something. But what I did from that time was I separated the belief about earning and about the work I do. It doesn't have to coincide. I can just have abundance. I can just have money come in, and I can do work that I really love. And it doesn't have to come from the work. It might, I could win the lottery and be giving my work for free. So actually, as a result, I was able to drop my price slightly and say, I don't, the money's going to come from somewhere else. And invariably it does. It just keeps doing it. It keeps coming from different directions. And it just don't, I'm not surprised anymore. It really just does.
Yeah, I think it's something I've been working on as well. And I think we are brought up again, like you say, there's a belief as well, our parents and our peers and society as a whole. We are kind of being brought up since the Romans to believe that the only way you get anything is through working. And so, and ultimately, there are other ways, like you're saying, there are other ways. You could win the lottery, you could get an inheritance, you could get a massive tax return. If you ever paid tax, obviously, you probably have to pay tax to get a tax return. And
well, somebody has to pay tax, maybe, or somebody maybe paid a tax on your behalf. Who knows? As I said, it never ceases to amaze me now. And the work, all the work I do is work I really purely love, and I would do it even if I was, a billionaire. that was my promise to myself, that I would change whatever belief I needed to change, or remove whatever belief was in the way, that I could live like this, and this is how I now live.
Yeah, that's pretty much very similar to what I've decided to do. Is that I've decided to just give no matter what I can do, as long as I have to make sure I'm giving to myself as well. That's the thing I used to do wrong quite a lot, was but yeah, I have to put myself first, so that I have enough energy, enough sleep, you know, all those things. I've kept up all my responsibilities, family as well, home and everything. I'm not letting it all fall apart, but then everyone else second. And I don't really put the money first, I put the results first. And yeah, I mean, like with what you do, life coaching, I hope to not specifically be a life coach, but guide people in the future, but for a ridiculously low price in a group session. You know, something that makes these things more accessible to people. And I'm pretty sure that at that point I will receive abundance, you know, because I will need it to be able to get out there and do those things. So I have a list of other things. So you had the belief that you had to work for money, and then you also say here that I didn't deserve more money, and that it wasn't fair on people who were very poor. Guilt.
I had a huge guilt problem. Yes. That was a big hurdle for me. I think that was worse than the working for money bit. It was the I couldn't, and you know, and I still struggle knowing that there are people in the world that haven't got enough food, and you know, and you think, well, how could I be asking for more when these people haven't even got what I have, and nowhere near. So I had to change. I had to work with that belief, and you know, it's like it reminded me of it didn't happen to me, but I see it's happened to a lot of people I know, when people saying, oh, there's kids starving in Africa, eat your dinner, don't waste your dinner. But you eating your dinner makes no change to those people in Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And this is what I had to kind of become aware, that me having some more is not really going to make any difference to the people who are starving or are homeless, and it will make no difference. And in fact, I can give more to them if I have, as you know, you can't share from an empty cup. If I'm okay, and if I have figured this out and money's coming in, I can actually get to a point where eventually I do my work completely for free, because I won't need it, and I can help all those people for completely, you know, no money. So in order to get to that point, I have to make sure that it's always flowing to me. I work through all the beliefs that I have that prevent me from just having it come in a big way. So you know, and I'm still working on it coming in a big way. So that's my ultimate goal, that I would eventually not really need any income from my work, and I can give it free, or for, you know, or for very little.
Yeah, and again, it's something I can really relate to, and I just want to say to anybody who's watching or listening, that, you know, if you have issues with money, and one of them's guilt, what about all these other people? What about people who are starving, etc.? Why should I have more? If you don't ask for more, who is going to ask for more? That's what I say to you right now, because we all are asking for more so that we can help other people, so we can make opportunities not just for ourselves, other people, but there's many people out there who are asking for more, that are only making opportunities for themselves. So just thought I'd throw that in there. And yeah, Cher's commented that for her it's about her intent. Oh, have I lost you?
Yeah, you froze for a bit for me.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so yeah, so Cher commented it's about her intent.
What, rather than belief? What about?
No, I think it's about the attracting the money. Yeah. Cher, can you explain a little bit more on that one? Oh, thank you, Alex. Sorry, just Sorry, just to read one of the comments, Alex said that he needed his food for thought hit. So thank you, Alex. Really glad to see you here. Yeah, so I mean, we've got other beliefs here. I think most people can relate to some of these. So that money can only come from the sources I could think of.
Yeah.
And that I had to struggle to deserve it. And that if one income supply would be cut off, I could lose everything. Yeah.
Yeah. That was, that I lost that a long time ago. The struggle bit, I thought it was a lot more than just money. I worked out that I had a belief that everything, because things in childhood, and it wasn't just about money. My life in childhood was very kind of up and down. So as things would go really well, and then something would happen and just cut it off, and it would be like, so there was kind of wavy up and down, and it wasn't really about money. It wasn't right to do with money. It was to do the other things in my childhood. So what I realized that in adulthood, my life was a bit, things are going well and then they'd be cut off, and money would do that too. Although in my childhood, it was fine. I didn't really have a poor childhood. It was just, okay. But money was one of the ways I could recreate losing the money and that security, because as a child, I may not have lost money, but I've lost my security when things would go downwards, the trough. So I realized what my subconscious mind was doing. It was believing that things have to go up and down. So it was making things go up and down any way, the easiest way it could. And in adulthood, it would do it with money also, although it wasn't really about money in my childhood, but it was an easy way for me to lose security and suddenly think, life's gone to pot again. It would go really well. And then when it was going really well, I would be anxious of, oh no, but I know it doesn't last. It will go down again. So what I realized was that my subconscious was recreating that pattern because it had created that belief from my experience that life's like this. It can't be like that. I mean, nobody's life is a flat line, but some people's lives are like that because of they believe or whatever, it will be okay. And some people are like that. And my childhood was like this. And I had that belief, so that was recreated, and the gain and loss of money would recreate those peaks and troughs.
Yeah, really interesting. So even when we maybe have like a very unconscious belief that life is never stable, that can replay into other areas of our life, even if it wasn't specifically about money. Yeah, I think it is interesting. Like, so we form so many beliefs throughout our lives. It's almost like how we're taught to be confident and how I believe in myself. And money is just one part of it. How much do you think confidence has to do with attracting money?
What do you mean? Define confidence, because I've had discussions where people define it.
I would define confidence as not being overwhelmed by doubt, if I'm honest.
Right. So confidence is what I call, being calm and being whatever happens, I will be okay. Yeah. Well, money, I mean, in the end, I had to change, although I was always confident as a person that had the ability to come out, and float out of disaster, and I would be okay. But I felt that disaster would be there, and then I'd have to keep floating, right? So what I changed to do with money and the lack of security was it doesn't have to be disastrous, and I will still be okay, but it doesn't have to be that way. And the things that would cause the anxiety inducing things that I had in the past, some of them were in the lack of confidence that things would come my way from the outside world. It's like I had a confidence that whatever came, I would make it okay, but I didn't trust. So I had the confidence, but not the trust that it will not be that bad. I, in fact, had this belief, this certainty that it will be that bad and it will be the end of the world, right? And the catastrophe would come. But I had the confidence that I will be okay, but at what cost? That it will cost me, it will completely, and weaken me in energy. And therefore, I thought, yes, I'm resourceful, I can come out the other end, but at what cost?
Yeah,
that was what was going in.
So there's all still the doubt. There's got to be a price to pay at the end, not like a financial price, but there's got to be something.
A self price, a price of self. What would it do to me, to my psyche, and to my body? Because I'm a menopausal woman, so there isn't as much energy as there used to be.
Yeah, so I can really relate to that. So not the menopausal bit, but really this sort of like fear of things turning out. I mean, it's actually something I watch out. I realized like I had some, they're not really beliefs. This is more of a habit, but in a way it's kind of creating a belief, is that when things go really well for a long time, you're like, oh, something's got to happen soon. Yeah,
that's a belief, because and it comes from experience. You say it's a habit, because it's been a habit, it's been happening over and over and over again, that now you're like, I'm just speaking from experience, but it is a belief that has to keep happening, because we're jumping in there to protect ourselves, because we say, well, don't get too comfortable, because then you'll be in shock, right? So it's a self-protection thing, to try and catch it and say, well, don't get comfortable now.
So the belief there is that things can't go good for a long time without something bad happening, I suppose. So it is amazing how beliefs form the foundations for most of our emotional reactions to our experiences. For sure. And also the choices we make. I mean, one of the things that came apparent to me when talking about anxiety, depression, stress, and addiction the other day is all of them are formed by beliefs. It's like addiction is a belief that this is going to solve your problem. And then the belief is that you need it, and then the belief is that you're addicted to it, and your belief is your body's going to withdraw from it. And there are some facts in the withdrawal side of it, but maybe not as bad as it's telling you. There's all these beliefs that making it worse in your brain, which is causing a bigger emotional response.
And your subconscious mind, very simply, just whatever you believe proves you right, likes to prove you right. So it will serve you in that way, even though it kind of doesn't understand nuances, as in, well, I didn't really mean it. He thinks, well, that's what you said, that's what you believe, that's what you thought. How do I know you didn't mean it?
Absolutely. And I mean, this is the trust with ourselves kind of thing, isn't it? Like, whatever we say to ourselves, even sarcasm doesn't really help. Being witty and stuff with ourselves isn't really helpful. I deleted most of those things from my life, and I used to be incredibly sarcastic most of my life. And so,
well, I say to people who still want to have their sarcastic sense of humor, I said, well, you have to change the jokes you use and use them to the ones you want. So you can still joke and say, oh yeah, I'm a millionaire. I mean, okay, that's sarcasm, but that's actually saying I'm a millionaire. You can change them. You can still keep your sense of humor, but you have to change the wording.
Okay. So cool. So as long as it's positive sarcasm, talking about, I like that. Right? I've made a note of that, actually. So before I get on to the next question, I'm going to just read two comments here. So we assign beliefs to our traumatic experiences. Beliefs are how we make sense of the world and the universe. Yeah. So, and Alex has said he's living with this topic as we're speaking. And yeah, Alex is somebody that I've met through Facebook, and he's a really nice guy actually. And it's an interesting thing. So when you're stuck in a very challenging situation, and you realize that you need to shift some beliefs to move forward, what would you do to start shifting those beliefs? What could somebody do? Maybe.
Right. Well, I mean, I have got a video. I mean, I will explain it, but I have made a video how to rewire your mind to get what you want. So really, I start rewiring. But first, you've got to find your limiting beliefs. There's another video, how to find your limiting beliefs. So a simple way, without going into hypnosis, would be to visualize what you want. Right. You have a problem, but usually the opposite, or, you know, with certain features, is what you actually want. And then you're going to start getting these objections from your mind, and he's going, yeah, but I can't have that because of that. It's like, make a note of all of them. These will all be your limiting beliefs. These will all be the limiting beliefs, whether some of them are true-ish. So if you say, well, I can't go to X because I haven't got a car, that would be like a factual thing. I haven't got a car. And then you go about thinking, okay, how can I get a ride or something, you know? Yes, I don't have a car, but I could get a ride or something like that, if it's a practical thing. If it's about yourself, all these objections will come up. Well, things like that don't happen to me, or I'm not able to, or I'm not trained, or I'm not, whatever it is that is in the way. So there's going to be this list of things that are in the way. These are all beliefs about things, whether they have some truth in them. And if they have some truth in them, the belief that that's a problem is the problem.
Yeah.
So the belief that I need a car is the problem. So for me, the belief that I had to work, well, I can't get an income, well, I can't get an income without, you know, without the work, right? And there was a fact there, right? Yeah, if I don't work, if I don't, you know, have the work, if I don't do the work, I won't get the money in. But the problem was that there was a belief that I need work was the only way to get the money in. So you have to kind of go a bit deeper and say, okay, do I need to, what do I believe about these things that make it what it is? So an example we have about people is that so-and-so is like this, and they're really, really difficult. People have that in relationships, you know, they're being really difficult, and I can't deal with them. And, you know, we all have these people in our lives, close or not, or distant, right? But we're actually believing that these people are going to carry on being like that. And we're not suspending belief, thinking, okay, I can distance. Obviously, if there's bad behavior going on, I'm not saying to stay in close proximity of that person, but our belief that they're going to continue being that, and our belief that these people can't do any better, is a limiting belief.
Yeah,
absolutely. It doesn't mean we have to be involved in the solution of how they're going to improve. In fact, a lot of the time it's best if we're not there, especially if we are the trigger, or, you know, it's about us. But it doesn't mean that will continue to happen. Because we have this, because what we believe, right, you accept that what we believe creates our reality.
Yes.
Our, you know, holographic reality.
Our perspective, yeah.
If we keep believing something about someone or something, if I keep believing that the government is corrupt, I'm going to keep seeing news items to show me what the government is corrupt. If I keep believing that the government has got human beings who do have an ounce of soul in them, then I'm going to see stories about that. They're both true, but what I see, what I experience would be the thing that I think about and believe.
Yeah, we would almost, I completely relate to that actually. So you almost wouldn't see the other things because you're almost, your brain is looking for those things. I used to be quite into conspiracy and all those things, and I realized it's a bit like that Tony Robbins phrase which I'm going to use again, where focus goes, energy flows. Yeah. And it's where we put our attention, we manifest these things in our reality is the bottom line. And so I love that method, to be honest. And so ask yourself what you want, and then make a note of all the reasons that come to you that you can't do it, and then identify, or most of them will be your beliefs, or something in there will be the belief. And that one you said about, I can't get a job unless I have a car. And it's amazing how so many of us say these things to ourselves. Oh yeah, but this is like a belief that held me back for quite a long time. Was I got expelled from school before my year 9 exam, so GCSEs, year 11, sorry. And I then was too young really to think about the full consequences. I just went out and started working. But then as I got older, it was like, well, I don't have this, and I don't have that, and I don't have this, and and those things were the things that nearly held me back. If I was, but luckily I'd already overcome depression, and so I was quite aware of beliefs. But I mean, I had tons of these things. I think sometimes it's you even have to catch just small things. I would like childhood stuff is that come back to me is when a parent is in a bad mood and they say things like, I don't know why I bother, or you're not worth it, and these things are just stressed out figures of speech, but they can ultimately be with that child until they discover them and go, hold on, all right, well, and for me, meditation's very good for that. Because meditation, you have to try and quiet, you quieten your mind. You used to have to, now quieten the mind. And I can tell whatever's on my mind because I'm meditating. Because whatever I can't get rid of, that's the thing, right? Okay, I haven't resolved that. Oh, that's the thing I haven't done here. So I love that maybe you could meditate as well with this technique. And then, so once you've identified those beliefs, what's the best thing to do? Swap them or clarify them, or how can you be very virtuous with these things?
Well, I take one belief at a time to work with them. And the thing I do with people is I get them to in order to rewire them, or rather unwire them, because really we come in with no beliefs and then we'll pick them up, is to take a belief, to say, I need a car to get a job, right? And then you'd write, I welcome, if you say, I have a car and I'm driving to my new job, that's unbelievable, right? That's not a belief you can straight away move to. But if you say, I welcome a mode of transportation, or I welcome a way to work that is easy and effortless, right? And some people can't even do that. I have a lot of people who we downgrade to, and then we go to other people. If they can't visualize, if they can't, if there's a resistance, we have to go until we find a sentence that has no resistance, or very little resistance, that feels believable. So if they can't downgrade, so we start with what you want, then the next downgrade is I accept whatever they want. And if that's usually, a big step, then we go to a welcome, like I would welcome abundance, or I would welcome a job that will just happen because, now we've got we don't need to go somewhere to work anymore, or some people don't need to. And then we downgrade even more if that doesn't suit, because I have some people that, no, that there's still resistance there. There's still, the mind going, no, don't think so. Or yeah, but is going, yeah, but. And we look at other people. Usually that's the lowest that you can go, and then you can tweak that slightly. But it's observe other people who have not got a car and work. Observe, and then immerse yourself in that world. Do research. Observe people. Google them, and so if it's about money, Google other people who've got the money you want. Google other people that how is it possible for them? So all these things that you think is not possible, you can start looking at how other people. So, and your sentence will be, there are people who are working without having a car. That would be the sentence. And then I get people to write it twice a day, 10 times twice a day. And whilst they're writing, they're entering that world. And then that goes straight to the subconscious, because the hand is hurting writing it. So the conscious is tired. And therefore it goes to the subconscious, and without resistance, because we need to go in without resistance, without the conscious resisting. So if you're writing, there are people, blah, blah, well, yeah, there are. Yeah, there's no resistance there. I believe there are. So when you find the sentence that, you can downgrade to, and then you write that, and then at the end of the day, I get them to, and this is in my video, so I've got on YouTube, I can find a link. It's actually Googleable. And is that a word? And then at the end of the day, I get them to look at 3 things that have gone their way to observe. This rewires. This creates new focus, as like Tony Robbins and many others have said. You start focusing on the possibility of what you want now. And this is I'm going down to the nitty-gritty. A lot of the things are changeable much quicker, but this is, I'm going, if you really can't change something, this will change it. And I'm telling you, within a few days, and I have the longest I've had, and these are people who either have autism or OCD, and they're very difficult to, they find it difficult to change an idea, because it's very stuck in their mind. After about 2 weeks, they change. But everyone else, about 3 days to a week, they're able to upgrade their sentence and upgrade. But there was nobody that wasn't able to upgrade their sentence until you get to the bit where it's what you want. And by that time, lots of things have happened anyway that have gone your way. By that time, the rewiring has you're already observing stuff, if not the very thing that you're asking for. To change.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I think it's really true. A lot of it's not really rewiring, it's unwiring, because I think this is something even I wasn't aware of, and I've been on a really long journey, is something that it just came to me over the last 3 or 4 weeks, is that it's not about changing into something. It's about changing back to who you were.
It's getting rid of the rubbish, really.
Yeah, you were born just knowing you were entitled to survive and knowing you were equal to everyone else. And then all this stuff happened that made you think otherwise, or if not, then good for you. Really, such a good point, though, that upgrading slowly, and so looking for the resistance. Don't just sit there and repeat stuff to yourself that
doesn't feel true, because your mind's is going to be jumping out and resisting and going, no, yes, but no, don't think so, and then you're going to give up. So and if you can find a meditation, because I have a meditation on achieving your goals on my website. If you find one that is more specific to your goal, listen to that. Is just repetition. There's 3 ways to make a change, to transform and unwire. And one is a big nasty shock. Do not recommend it. The other one is hypnosis or guided meditation that sort of gets you into the alpha state. And the other is repetition. And if you can do that meditation and repetition, if you combine those 2, because that's how these things got wired in the first place, because we're in that state when we're children. We're in the alpha state a lot of the time, and we learned a lot of things by repetition. It didn't just happen once. It got, a thought happened, and then it got reinforced until it was a belief. It didn't just happen one time. It was like a continuous reinforcement of a specific thought. So if you can do that, and it doesn't take us long, thankfully, because I believe it's because we're unwiring. We're just going back. So it doesn't take as long as it took us as children to learn. It doesn't take long at all to go back.
Something you just made me think about, actually, is the fact that, you were saying how once you form a belief, like, for example, the government are corrupt, you'll see it everywhere. I think one of the things that unfortunately happens to us as children is that when we start forming a belief that we're not enough, for whatever way, whether we're naughty, or we suddenly get to the point where we're only seeing that as well. And so we end up inadvertently reinforcing that belief ourselves, because you know, we're not hearing that well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're waiting
Yeah.
for the, now I'm going to be told, but,
Yes.
or the, you know, we don't hear the positive because we're so prepared and expecting a negative once we start to form negative beliefs. And by that, you know, again, even the most, let's use the word qualified parents are not going to be able to help every child, because what's going on in my brain, what's going in Anastasia's brain, what's going on in our kids' brains, we don't know, you know, unless they tell us.
And because of our negative bias to protect us, you know, from any danger, we need to hear the positive so much more than the negative. And of course, that doesn't even happen. We don't even hear it as much as the negative. And therefore, we, you know, most of us grow up having some kind of, it's a very rare person that is kind of completely happy with themselves. And yeah, not many I've come across. There is always that degree of.
Well, actually, I just want to.
Self-doubt.
Yeah, one of the things I found actually was really interesting about that book that I was talking about earlier is that the "I'm okay, you're not okay" is the serial killer. Yeah, so somebody that believes in themselves and doesn't believe in anyone else is where most serial killers and high-level criminals are formed. Actually, you have to have faith in other people as well to not go off the rails, as well as yourself. Right. Well, it's been a really, really interesting conversation. I love those tips. So, so is there anything else you would like to discuss before I go any further? Is there anything else you'd like to go on about?
I'm not happy unless anybody's got any questions. I'm quite happy, and then you know, people can carry on. They can comment under this. I mean, I think you're going to ask questions now. I'll be happy to answer them if people got more questions.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm just there's a few comments, but I'm not really understanding. So I mentioned manifestation, and somebody put, "Is it about manifestation though?" I remember just before COVID hit, I knew lockdowns were coming and nobody believed me. One friend said, "Don't think about it or you'll make it real." I mean, that's, yeah, so it's my fault COVID and lockdowns hit. No, I don't think so. I think there's a very fine line between
intuition.
Yeah,
sometimes we intuitively pick something up, and there's one thing to intuitively pick because you know you're not repeatedly saying it, you're not it's just coming in, and you know when it's intuition because it's coming in and you think, like I had before COVID, I had this intuition to take vitamin D and lots of it, and I thought, where did that come from? I didn't have a belief about vitamin D. I didn't even talk about it. It's only afterwards, months afterwards, and they said, oh, you know, vitamin D is quite good, protect you against infection, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And some people are intuitives and they are picking up. Now, that's different from manifesting because you believe something over and over and over and you say it again. So it's not that the government are not corrupt. They are.
Yeah, I was not going to bring that
up. It's not that they're not human beings and they could be nice. It's what do you want to see? So COVID came and some of us saw it as a disaster and some of us saw it as a positive, you know, so something bad. As a result of something bad, something good happening. Not everyone had the same experience. And yes, COVID was very much, you know, happening, but what experience you're going to have from that depends on what you believe. And then the government is corrupt, but does that have to bother me? Does that have to affect me? That's the difference. Yes, they are, but they're over there and I don't really have to deal with them. Whilst if I keep looking for those stories and I keep believing that, I'm going to keep getting the evidence, and then that's obviously not going to make me feel very good. So yes, it can be a fact, but it doesn't. Lots of things are facts and lots of information out there all the time. We don't have the capacity to pick up all the information that is out there. We're only going to pick up the information that we focus on, and a belief is a focus of thought. Therefore, if you have the belief, you're going to experience that thing. But you don't have to. There's lots of bad things. There's war going on, you know, in certain countries, and certain people are not even aware.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. She says here that at the end of it, actually, that it's not always good to ignore the dark, but we shouldn't live in it either. We need the light and the dark. And I think that's what you're talking about here, is that there's always two ways to look at everything. You know, there is always two sides to the story. And one of the things, again, I learned recently is that we shouldn't deny the fact that we could become dark. Yeah, we must embrace the fact that it's still a possibility for us. None of us are angels or, you know, perfect. And so accepting that we can
absolutely
be, yeah, as well as
we all have a shadow. Yeah.
So yeah, and there's a bit more talk about manifestation here. So generally, like, manifestation is, you couldn't manifest COVID, but you can't manifest a better income while you're not believing it's available to you. Let's give it that way. So
well, you could manifest disease in yourself if you keep having negative thoughts and bad things, and you know, disease could find you, right? And disease is always there, and we always have microbes and viruses all over, but we don't actually have the full-blown disease. We, you know, if you look under a microscope, we're full of bugs, but we don't actually have the full-blown disease and condition. So it's always there. You don't have to experience it. And some people, you know, there is the belief that, again, the word belief, that COVID came because there was this collective need for something drastic to happen, for things to change. And COVID was just the thing that made it happen. The you know, a carrier, something that made it make the change. But the collective want that we manifested was a change. And there is change. People work different. There's so much change happened because of COVID. But it had to be something drastic. Otherwise, people weren't changing. It's unfortunate that it wasn't, you know, we made a lot of people unhappy, but it happened because it had to be drastic enough for the change of the collective want to come into fruition.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's, I think, something that people do not see when they are, like you say, focused on the problem, which was the fact that we were, well, what appears to be the problem is that the whole world got locked down for a long time. But actually, it turned out to be a bonus, because a lot of people took advantage of that time. And now we have a really big movement of people seriously focused on creating a better future for all, where things like that are not such a big problem, and we're more prepared, and each of us individually is able to, I'm going to use that word again, manifest the life that we desire. And that doesn't just mean sitting on your bum going, hey, I want everything to come to me, although maybe it will, because if you believe it enough, it could happen.
Maybe it will, but I can tell you, after about 6 months, I got bored and wanted to do something. I wanted to be of service again. But that's the number of the amount of time I needed to become well again, to just not being burnout anymore. But, you know, other people, you do actually want to be productive after a while, but that doesn't mean work or something that has to be a struggle, something you don't want to do.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the difference.
Yeah, so definitely, like, beliefs and manifestation, there's a really big connection there. And ultimately, you know, there's a couple of comments here I can reply that there is no result without action. Yeah, well, that is one of the laws of the universe, is the law of action. And so manifestation takes some kind of intent and action, but it can just be, it doesn't have to be like work. Like this
meditating
belief
on something is action. You're actually doing something.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was going to say, is it actually can just be putting out good energy into the world and thinking things through and just doing those things. Anything is action, as long as you've got the beliefs aligned to make it come to you. I mean, I believe a lot of things, and that really helps me. And most of the things I believe that don't help me, I've been rewiring to get back to my pure self. And I like some of the tips you shared with us today. They seem incredibly practical. I'm going to see what limiting beliefs I still have towards achieving the things I want to achieve. And I hope that some of the people that are watching will try those things as well. So anything else you'd like to talk about? Yes.
I mean, if there are no more questions, I'm quite happy.
Well, one's just popped in as I was about to leave there. It's a bit of a off-topic one, I think, but it's about beliefs. Does Anastasia believe in God?
Oh, that is a very, very interesting, probably a long answer. I do not, I'm not religious. I do not follow any religion, but I do believe in source energy, and that's what I call, that's how I understand God. I do believe there's the whole lot more than we see, and I did share with you, Matt, but I didn't want to go into that because that's a whole other hour. A few months ago, I had this awareness come upon me that this is a simulation and there is a whole lot, we are divine eternal beings, and certain parts of me have opened up as a result of that, and I'm undergoing change at the moment. So yes, there's a hell of a lot more than this simulation that we are here experiencing at the moment. So I'm becoming more and more aware of a lot of stuff, and I wasn't doing anything to come into this awareness. I was, in fact, I was in my bedroom sitting down thinking about manifestation exercises. Funny that they've talked about manifestation exercises I've been doing to change my life and other people's lives. And then I thought, well, if we can control everything, we can change everything, then and then it just came down this, I was taken by this awareness that we live in a simulation, and it's a game. It felt to me like a game, and actually I started giggling about all the times that I'd taken life too seriously and how funny that was from that point of view, and that has never left me now. It wasn't something like a thought. I'd had those kind of thoughts before, but it was a thought or a discussion, then I just carried on living in my, like a zombie, my life carried on. But this time it was one of these things that once you see, you cannot unsee. So yes, I do believe there's a hell of a lot more than this. But yeah. I don't follow any religion. Although a lot of them, the message amongst a lot of them, the common message about love and caring for each other, I think is wonderful. And I'm not against any religion. I think it helps a lot of people. I've just for a very, very long time have not needed it to tell me right from wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know when something's wrong, or, I feel it when something is wrong. All right.
I think, all religions come from spirituality originally, and ultimately spirituality is basically talking about what you're talking about, which is whether this is a simulation or however you see it, that it is all energy, and we are all part of one thing, which is source. We're all connected through source. It's the energy that runs through everything, and ultimately the power is in our hands. That is the one thing that is unclear in a lot of religion these days, I believe, and that is just due to manipulation of text over the years. But now there's so much other stuff coming up that there's so much new information coming up. We're starting to get those old texts and reanalyze them and just see, hold on, this doesn't say anything like what the book says today. So yeah, I'm not a religious person. I wasn't much of a believer in anything, to be honest. I couldn't touch it, then I and I hadn't experienced it, then I didn't believe in it. Now I'm just incredibly open-minded to all the new things coming my way, which completely align with what you've just said there, to be honest. I mean, I was starting to realize it was a game, and we're although we don't get to be the same character every time we play. We
incarnate as, this is what I believe, we incarnate as different characters. I mean, what would the fun be if we were the same character? That'd be boring.
For sure. And that's another thing I learned from somebody else, is that as a soul, as a soul detached from the oversoul, we're here to experience the entire spectrum of emotions. Now, we can't do that in one lifetime.
No.
So that's why we have so many different lifetimes, and ultimately we we cannot really know what we're here to experience this lifetime until we start to find out who we are and get on track with the life we're living. But
right, and yeah, and we have the thing of forgetting when we're in here. But you know, but I often think, what was I thinking when I decided to come and have this life? Was I not having fun on the other side? But sometimes I am having a lot of fun, and I'm grateful that I did decide to take this trip.
well,
but other times, yeah.
Yeah, so these are the unanswered questions. Did you have a choice about whether you came here? And you said, like, was I not having fun on the other side?
Yeah.
Almost feels like the earth is soul school, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I believe that it's the practical, because I come up from initially a scientific background where we'd learn the theory and then we'd be in the lab doing the practical. I think this is the practical of the theory that you can't on the other side, you know, kind of feel and experience, because you need the practical. And this is the practical. Why we forget that this is the practical, and we come in and we'll all have this, you know, our memories wiped. And some people have got more memory now. I'm not one of them, that they come into this. I read about people who've incarnated and they have more memory of other lives. I certainly don't.
Can I just catch you on that belief there?
No, I don't remember. I don't remember any other lives at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is the thing, is what I find interesting, because this does go back to beliefs as well, is that you know, these memories are not physical within us. If they're there, they're external in source, for example. And yeah, this is the audition. And so ultimately, by not believing we can remember them, we will never attach to those memories.
Brilliant, yes.
The reason is,
if I actually change that belief, I might remember more. I'll come back to you on that.
Yeah, it's just something,
you got me on something now.
Yeah, I've had some meditations recently where I've suddenly appeared like almost like a caveman traveling, and I'm like, yeah, I was going into a quiet meditation. Now I can see this view, and I stop and I can look at myself. And I've been through a few different lives, and I get the message during the meditation that I've been around for a long time. And that's the message I get. I've been around for a long time, and I've always been looking for, you know, to create harmony. And so, you know,
well, you had that energy, the healing energy that I've said to you before. I did encounter that when ever since I met you, and I've never actually met you in person, and I could feel the energy. So yes, I believe that's true. Yes, and thank you. I'm going to go and play with that in meditation now.
Yeah, well, I would. Yeah, obviously I haven't been on the journey. I can spot a belief when I see it.
Yes. Yeah. Oh gosh, yes. I'm definitely guilty of a lot of beliefs, and it's much easier to actually spot them in someone else than it is to ourselves, and that's why coaches have coaches. Or
yeah.
What can I tell you?
Oh well, we've been on here nearly 90 minutes, so I'm going to call it a wrap, I think. But it's been a really awesome show. Thank you, Anastasia. And
I've definitely enjoyed talking and exploring. Thank you.
Me too. Yeah, and thank you everybody who watched. I hope we answered all of your questions. And last comment was, maybe this is the audition. Well, this was the real thing, but yeah, life is an audition. What's the famous Shakespeare quote? We're all the pawns, or something like that. That's it. So we're all the pieces, and life is a game. So thank you all. Thank you, Anastasia. Look, right, I will be back on Thursday with the Conscious Creators community, and we are talking about trust and truth. And then I will be back next Monday, and I am meeting with Paul Bryan, and we're going to be talking about breaking free of the limitations imposed by your story and uncovering your life script. So that's going to be an interesting one.
I'll be looking. I look forward to coming in on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, this is from the story of a shaman who's a very experienced pagan, Wiccan shaman. Like, he's studied it all and has done for many years, and always blows my mind. As you do too, Anastasia. As every guest actually has so far, and we're nearly at 20 shows. So that's really good go. Thank you, everybody.
Brilliant. Thank you. you.